All right, hey everybody! Thanks for tuning in to All Things Division III Soccer with SimpleCoach and Jackie. I am SimpleCoach. She's had a traumatic morning because the lawnmower people were here, so she's a little skittish. But that there is the Chief Dog Officer, Jackie. All right, so it's week 2, and this episode is obviously on the top 25s, which is why you're here. Now, a couple things. Today is Wednesday. Recording this yesterday. I had hoped to get this out yesterday morning because there were some key matchups yesterday on both the men's and the women's side that could have changed, and I will say probably will change for next week's. But everything you're seeing here today is as of Sunday. So the last games played on Sunday. Sort of compiled my lists of top 25s, and here we are. So just keep that in mind. I haven't not seen the other scores and games or watched. But I'm just drawing a cutoff because if I constantly go about changing this, I'd never get these out. So keep that in mind. Second thing, as is always the case, I've had to watch these teams to one degree or another. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, doesn't matter, half a game, just to sort of get a sense as to what I'm actually talking about. So if there's somebody that's not up there, there's a chance that it's because I didn't get a chance to see them. I know that's a lot of soccer, though. So with that, shout out to Coach Rob One Take Harrington at MSOE. If you somebody you should subscribe to on anti-social media if you get a chance, because he does some daily updates that are interesting from Milwaukee, and just one of the good guys in the game. So on that note, let's begin with the women's top 25. Okay, so let's start with as I mentioned, the women. Let's go with number 25, coming in from New Jersey. I have Montclair State. They're new to the rankings this week. They had 3 big wins in a row: SUNY New Paltz, Misericordia, and Vassar. At 24, I'm going with Hardin Simmons at 4-0-1. They beat the Redlands and then tied Trinity. At number 23, Washington and Lee, 4-0-1. They tied Franklin and Marshall, and then beat Hood. At 4-1-1, I have College of New Jersey. And then at 21, Emory, who, they had 2 wins against Illinois Wesleyan and Lynchburg following the loss they had to Hartford. So Messiah, a big drop in this ranking. They had 2 tough losses to a really good McDaniel team and a very, very good William Smith College. Next up at 19, Mary Hardin Baylor, also new to the rankings. They're undefeatable, so how can you not have them? They had some really good wins against Ohio Northern and Southwestern University. The Pirates, as I was taught the other day by Mr. Petru. Also new to the rankings at 5-0-1 is Calvin at 18. They dispatched North Central Chicago, and then yesterday they faced Illinois Tech, but that's not included. So also new to the rankings at 6-0-1 is Cal Lutheran. They tied Pacific Lutheran in the Martin Luther Praying Hands Cup in the first game of the season, and then basically have rolled with the 6 wins. And yesterday they played Chapman. So next up, number 16, Coach Wyant's NYU at 5-0, undefeatable. They're probably, I'll say, their next big test, real big test, is going to be against Case on the 30th at the end of the month. So that's something to keep on the calendar. Another Jersey strong team coming in at 5-0 and 0-1. Tied Swarthmore, beat Penn State Berks. I just was looking at their schedule, and I do think they're going to need to basically roll their next 4 games before they face Montclair State to stay where they're at. So, yeah. At 14, the frozen tundra of Wisconsin lacrosse, undefeatable at 6-0. On Saturday, they played a big game also against also undefeatable Christopher Newport University. So. At 13 and at 5-0-1 is MIT. They've had a number of good wins, but the key matchup was yesterday against Tufts. So that'll be the outcome of that will be very telling. So at number 12, the Eves of Williams at 4-0-1. You know, they keep getting the wins. They just beat Springfield and Bates, and keep representing the NESCAC. And then also from the NESCAC at number 11 is Amherst at 4-0-1. They're the first time on the rankings, and it's largely driven by how they convincingly dispatched Tufts 4-1. So. And then number 10, before we sort of run down, Pomona Pitzer from out in Cali, undefeatable. And yesterday they played 2-0-2 Occidental, which I think is going to be a key match for them. Okay, so let's go with number 9. If I could do this. Here, yeah, look at that. Number 9, Johns Hopkins. They're 4-1-1. They tied TCNJ in a really good match, and then followed by a win against Muhlenberg. So they don't have that just presence they had last year where they rolled over everybody. So there'll be some. You know, I'm sure they'll continue to do really well, but just, you know, at this point in this week and based on their body of work, it's, you know, I think that's a respectable place for them. Next up, number 8, Washington University at 5-0. Listen, 23 goals for, 0 against. I will say, I think on the season, I think their biggest test is going to be this Friday against Emory. So that's definitely a game to watch. And number 7, University of Paywall, Rochester, 5-0-1. They had wins against Keuka, the lake. I can never say it. And York. Next up at number 6, Wesleyan out of Connecticut, 4-0. They had a statement win against Tufts, and then yesterday they faced Vassar. So they're another NESCAC that's just really doing well. At number 5, 6-0-1. They've just been really solid. I think very highly of how they play. And they had wins against Oberlin and then very good Otterbein and Baldwin Wallace, the OAC teams. So number 4, Hartford, 4-1. I still think they have very, very strong credentials to make it all the way to the national championship. But They dropped a game. They played Division One Merrimack. They lost 2-1. Yeah. Number 3, Coach Jamie Gunderson doing it again. They're undefeatable, which you can't deny. They've had some really great wins against Pacific Lutheran, Virginia Wesleyan, Capital, and Ohio Northern. No slouches. So they're rolling along. Okay, number 2 with a tie against Rochester and a real solid win against Messiah, 4-1, William Smith College. I got that right. Sits at number 2. And number 1, as of right now, and number 1, I have Carnegie Mellon, the Tartans. Yes, they're 7-0. They've scored 32 goals for, 1 against. I will say this too: enjoy the sunlight or the sunshine, because the second half of their schedule is all UAA games. And it's brutal. It's brutal. They run the gamut of who they're going to play, and they're all top 20s, or top 50 teams. So I think there's going to be a real challenge for them to stay. But if they do, they're very deserving of number 1. So as of right now. So okay, so that was the women. All right, so now on to the men's top 25. Let me get situated here. Here we go. Again, this is based on games as of Sunday. So at number 25, I'm going with the undefeatable 6-0 Virginia Wesleyan Marlins. I don't know if that's right, but I think so. Undefeatable. They have a they had a big test against Washington and Lee yesterday. So that outcome will drive where they're at. I'm going to say this too. There are a bunch of teams that I really struggled with whether I should add or not, because of this, the way it is. And that includes my Mount Union Purple Raiders, but I opted not to. I'm saying that because of the number 24 is where I had them if I was going to put them in. But I wasn't, as of Sunday, I'm not quite there yet. And they played Case yesterday, so there could be changes coming. But at number 24, I do go with SUNY New Paltz at 5-0-1. You know, they've been quietly taking the W's, and yet yesterday they had a big game against Oneonta. So see how that shakes out. Number 23, Bowdoin. I think Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain's school, 3-0-1. They had a good tie against Connecticut College, who I think highly of. Next up, I know everyone. The rankings are out, right? So all the United Soccer coaches and Massey, obviously, and they see these folks a little bit higher than I do at 22. Montclair State at 5-0-1, but they tied Vassar at home. I'm waiting to see. So especially once they get into the NJAC games, I mean, that could be really tough. So, hey, new to the rankings, undefeatable. Now, and I thought this was a little bit fluky. You know, you get these teams every so often that go strong in the preseason or during the early parts of the season and then sort of peter out. But I will give these guys credit. They can play. They are new to the top 25. Carlton out of Minnesota. They I thought they were kind of lucky against Gustavus. Like I just, they found the goal or whatever. Um, yeah, but it's not the case. So they're still undefeatable, and they're still rolling along. Number 20, University of Paywall again. The men and women showing up here. Rochester at 4-0-1. They had a tie with RIT and a big win against Hobart. So these guys are rolling. They can play. Number 19, the Red Dragons of Cortland State, coached by Coach Axtell. They're 5-1-1. They have just they drew at Rowan on the road, which is a tough game midweek. That's like Tuesday night in Stoke type thing. So that's a rough time to play. So they against a good Rowan team, and then they beat Alvernia. Yesterday they played Ithaca, so that's a very big rivalry. So 18, I have Tufts. They kind of dropped quite a bit, mostly just because of the 3-1 loss to Amherst. I mean, that's that's pretty big deal. So, let's see. Where am I? Tufts, 7-18. There we go. Okay, another NESCAC and new to the top 25. Middlebury. They tied Amherst the first game, and then they rolled with 8 goals in 2 games while only conceding 1. So I do think they're a force to reckon with. Christopher Newport at 4-0-1. They dropped 5. Harsh, I know. They tied Peace College. So, yeah. Number 15, Coach Ficino in out in North Central, 6-1. They got beat by Carleton most recently, and I but I still think they're deserving of that spot. So, next up, Texas Lutheran at undefeatable, 6-0. I will say the first. I've been saying it for a few days now. The first is going to be a big deal against when they play Trinity. So, 13. I'm really high on these guys. 2-0-2, Connecticut College. They looked good in the draw to Bowdoin. I will say I think it's now time to see them win. Right? They can move the ball. They're really disciplined. They have something that they didn't have last year, and now they just got to put the ball in the back of the net and stop people from scoring. So, number 12. Case Western Reserve, 5-0-1. Had a really, really good draw against John Carroll, and then they beat Allegheny. And then yesterday they played the Raiders of Mount Union, but I will reserve comment. Next up, Redlands at 5-0, undefeatable. They keep dominating out west, and they beat Chapman, and then they beat I don't know much about the NAIA, but they beat Vanguard, which I think is a pretty good program there. And then yesterday they had a big game against Claremont Mud Scripps, so that's a big deal. Okay, so this is where I'm still gonna get grief. Like I have next up at number 10, I have Chicago at 3-1-1. They lost to Hope, and they lost to Hope 1-0. And I think you could say that Chicago just were not fortuitous to score, but last year's team would have found a way, and I'm just not sure they can find ways this year. So I'll leave it at that. Number 9, the Mammoths of Amherst. Coach Serpone at 3-0-1. You know, they keep doing what they're doing, and they beat pretty soundly. They beat Tufts 3-1 at Tufts, which is, that is not a fun place to visit if you're trying to play them. Next up, St. Thomas out of Tejas, 4-0-1. They tied St. Edwards, which I think is a Division I or a Division II. I don't know, but that's where they're at. Number 7, Calvin. I had them at 3 last week, but they lost to my Purple Raiders of Mount Union, 1-0, and are stand at 6-1. So next up, undefeatable SUNY Oneonta. We got 3 SUNY schools represented. I think 1, 2. Yeah, I think we have 3 SUNYs represented this year. 16 goals for, 1 against, and they play New Paltz yesterday. They played yesterday, so that'll come into factor next week. Next up, the Diplomats of Franklin and Marshall, 5-0-1. Coach Wagner, rinsing and repeating and doing what he's doing. They're up a couple spots. I think they are. I don't know how he does it and how they repeat every year after year after year. But these guys are good again, and they make it a nightmare for teams. Like just oppressive press, right? Like that's the way it is. You just never get time to breathe. Number 4, the Blue Streaks of John Carroll, Coach Dayon, 5-0-1. I think this team is very, very good, and they're showing it. So I've been saying all along, I think they could be a Final Four team. Like I think they're that good. Okay, so next up is a team who last year, in spite of making it to the final and losing to the eventual champion of Chicago, I did not include in my final top 25. And I received some grief from people over that, because how dare I not include Williams, the finalist, in the top 25. They should be at least second. And I said, no. And I'm just going to read to you a comment I received from someone when I posted it. And this is what it says, word for word. You can see it up here. If an expert, in quotes, excludes a team that beat Ohio Northern, Mary Washington, Kenyon away, Bowdoin away, tied Amherst and Babson, and tied then prevailed on PKs against Messiah away, a viewer might say that is a significant oversight. Or a viewer might even say that the expert, in quotes again, and the rankings list he created have no credibility. Which school other than Chicago has had that level of success this year with a comparably strong schedule? You left Williams out of the top 25, not on merit, but on their style of play, which you don't like. I think I responded, you have confused me with another expert. But I also responded saying, like, look, if I'm doing a ranking, my rankings are, I take in the total body of work in a season. So yeah, they had a great run in the tournament, but they ended up at 10 10-1 or 10-2 and 11 or something like that. And I was just like, there's better teams that with a better record, other teams with a better record. I thought that was my rationale. But here we are at number 3, Williams, currently undefeatable. Right? They are 4-0. And this time last year, they were 2-0-2. It's same first 4 games. And so here they are, a team playing in the NESCAC, undefeated, playing whatever their good style of soccer, which I still don't necessarily like. But here they are, they're number 3. And they're actually winning this time. So to the person who posted, maybe my thought process is, there's more to the game than just ties. So let me move on. I rambled. At number 2, Messiah, 5-0-1. They had a tough draw against Salisbury. I thought they had a lot of opportunities, but just couldn't. But I thought Salisbury really defended well and got lucky in a couple instances. But I'm just wondering, right? Like this is the question I'm asking myself: is do they have the goal scoring power? Like they could switch on the goals when they needed them in a remarkable way, and I'm not sure I see that as clearly as I did last year. So I don't know. Which means, like on the women's side, we have a new number 1. They're undefeatable. They're just collecting W's, just like they did against Johns Hopkins, Lycoming, just Hampton Sid, and most recently a very, very good Emory team. Mary Washington, University of Mary Washington. That's who's number 1 for the men's for this week. So, okay, so that's the top 25s for the men and women. On the men's side, you have Carnegie Mellon, the Tartans, and then Mary Washington for the men. Hope you enjoyed this show. I would just to, hey, if you want to see more content like this, or you're looking for other things for me to do, I'm trying to get a Patreon page all started up. So if you go over to Patreon, All Things Division III Soccer, and sign up, it would be greatly appreciated. And and I will keep rolling. If you have any comments, did I miss anybody? Was I completely off? By all means, put them down below, or shoot me an email. I respond. I know that's kind of archaic, but I do respond as best I can. So, all right. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. Expect on Friday you will see another game or games of the week for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And have a great one. So, all right.